You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Well, hey, everybody. Good morning. My name is Chris.
And I'm Catlindt.
And we today are the Bible Guys.
We are.
Because Jeff is out of town, and so he's out of the country. And so we've done this thing that I think has been very fun throughout the week. We've had a different guest every single day. And today we have Catlindt. And by the way, it's an unusual name. I'd never heard of it.
Yeah.
So how do you spell Catlindt?
Catlindt is spelled Catlindt.
So it's Catlindt.
That's a joke. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But the T represents the cross. My dad wanted God to follow me all the days of my life. And so it would have been weird to put N and then T. So he put a D in between them and then made them both silent.
Wow. So Catlindt and with the DT,
Correct.
Which is extremely cool.
Thank you.
So, and by the way, it wouldn't have worked if you weren't if you didn't have cool vibes. If you were like the nerdy kind, you'd be like, hey, my name's Catlindt.
Right.
Maybe it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't have worked.
Maybe it wouldn't work.
I agree.
But you walk in and you're all smooth and you're like Catlindt. They're like, oh, he's so cool. That's a cool name.
Thank you.
Yeah, it wouldn't work on me though. So, okay. So you have been on staff with us at Heritage Church at our main campus as production director.
Yes, sir.
So in a sentence, what do you do? What is that title?
I am. Thanks so much for having me. First of all,
you're
you
welcome.
and Pastor Jeff for
Yeah.
sure. This is really, really cool. I'm usually on the other side of the camera, so to be on this side is pretty cool.
Well, you went for Christmas.
Right.
At Christmas, we featured you.
Yeah, that's
which
true.
was really cool.
That's true.
So some people probably really know you from that.
Yeah, that's cool. But to your point, I am the production director, so I'm in charge of all of the worship experience. So all things audio, all things video, and all things lights. Now, do I do all of them simultaneously? No. We have a phenomenal team to do what it is that God has graced us to do.
But the buck stops here, which when things go great, you're the hero.
Right.
And when things go bad, look out.
Yes. Everything rises and falls on leadership, which I know you know all about.
Yep, for sure. Well, that's cool. So it's a thrill to have you, and we are going to launch right into our first segment. Cool. Which, by the way, I've advertised this every day, so I don't want to forget today. If you're in the area and you want to drive to Imlay City to see the Bible Guys live, it's going to be Jeff and I on April 24th at the Imlay City campus. You got to get tickets, but they're free just to reserve your spot. There's only 200 spots. But go to heritagechurch.com/events. And we're doing an actual Bible Guys episode live on stage. And it's going to be really cool. We're going to have some other fun as well. And there's no agenda. It's just to have fun. So it's just to celebrate, get to meet some people, and you can waltz in and out. You don't have to worry about knowing anybody, but just drive there. Especially if you're from the Sterling Heights campus and you want to go out there, especially, that'd be a great invitation. Or the Stony Creek campus as well, right? So here we go. So here is what I call the crazy question segment that Desiree has done for all of you guys. Catlindt is the production director, and he has the coolest style. So she's even acknowledging that you're cool.
I'm very humbled by that.
So here is today's question. Would your kids say you're cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. All right. So what's the funniest or most random fashion trend that you secretly wish you could make a comeback, even though you might get weird looks? What a crazy question.
Yeah, thanks, Desiree. Really appreciate you on that one.
Yeah.
What would I say? Crazy comeback versus style. I'd probably say the whole... I'm going to answer it this way.
Yep.
So, chivalry. Yes. I'm a millennial.
Yeah.
And the generation before me, I saw many examples of that. Chivalry. So, guys walking on the edge of the sidewalk.
Oh, you're going, boy, you know what? Your brain does work this way. Every time we're in creative meetings.
I'm going somewhere, I promise.
Yeah. No. I'm complimenting you because it is so much deeper than my brain. My brain would be like, fashion trend means bell bottoms.
Right.
And you're like, no. Chivalry.
Yeah.
Is a trend, is a fashion trend.
Yes. Because your attire comes with that persona, with that perspective.
Oh, you're saying chivalry determines actual attire.
Yes. Because if you're going out,
I interrupted you too early.
No, a little bit, but it's okay. It's okay. It's a conversation. It's cool.
Continue your thought. Go ahead.
So when you go out with your wife, she has on a nice dress. You make sure that your attire is suitable for her.
Sure.
Like you just had a birthday. Happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you very
right?
much. Thank you.
So when she took you out, you didn't have on flip-flops and some jeans and a wrinkled shirt. You had attire that was befitting of not only the venue that you were at, but complimentary to what she had on. Today's day, that's probably a lost art, especially in my generation and the generations after me, because you could be out with your lady and she could be dressed, to the nines or whatever, and the guy would just have on some flip-flops.
Right.
So I would bring back, to answer your question, I would bring back just guys looking nice.
Nice.
Yeah, versus just getting up and going out looking like you just walked out of bed.
As you walk in with a very, very swanky looking outfit, and I've got a T-shirt on. Right? You. Yeah. So yeah, there you go. Case in point right here. T-shirt Bible guys.
Oh, that's funny.
So hey, what a great answer to the question. Wow. That's really good. And by the way, my wife surprised me. It was so great. She actually said, pack an overnight bag.
Okay.
I didn't know where I was going. We drove from Troy, Michigan to Ann Arbor. Yeah. So Ann Arbor is a great city. I didn't know what we were going to do. We did a massage, like a couples massage thing.
Sweet.
So that was fun.
Do you like massages?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yes, very much. And then especially since if you work out and you're sore or whatever, it's really great. Yeah. And then we went back to the hotel, changed, and she said, "Now dress nice. Well, pack." I knew before I packed, but I had to wear a jacket. I had no idea where I was going, none. So we dressed up super nice, and she took me to a live jazz club.
Let's go.
Yeah. So it was so cool. In fact, I sent you a video of the was it trumpet or drums? Saxophone, of course, because you play sax.
I do.
But it
was really cool.
It was cool, and the same guy who played the sax was a flautist.
Oh, nice.
So he did the live jazz with the flute, and I'm telling you, live music's my thing. I love it so much. And I told my wife, who's listening probably right now, I said it's one of the most memorable birthdays. Not because it was especially the best live music I've ever heard, although I loved it. Yeah. But it was more about because I love it so much, and it was like when my family cares about me enough to say, we're going to do this for you. I mean, holy cow, man, driving us all the way there and doing all this and doing this just because I love it. I felt totally loved. Yeah. So it was great.
Shout out to her. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And then we went to the most popular restaurant in Ann Arbor.
Okay.
But guess what? We found out that it was actually in our Arbor, it was hash week.
Wow.
So it was weed week.
Right.
So as we were walking through the streets, we're like, why does everybody smell like marijuana?
Because it's that time.
And it was weed week. And we were like, why did we come on weed week?
Contact high.
It was so funny. And we were just like, we were coming to our car. It was terrible. All right. Well, hey.
Well, you made it to live to see another day and to tell the story.
That's right. And speaking of getting high, oh, wow.
Come on, awkward transition.
We don't need substances in our lives because we get high on the Spirit of God.
Come on, Holy Spirit.
That's it, right? That's all we need. We don't need nothing else.
That is so good.
It's so awful. Terrible transitions. That's what we're about.
Oh, man.
Oh, I can't believe I even started with that.
Pastor Jeff would appreciate that.
He would, for sure. So we're going to jump into Psalm chapter 46. And you are going to read all 11 verses.
Okay, sweet.
All
so
right.
this is Psalm 46, NLT, right?
Yes.
Okay, correct. Cool. We'll do 1 through 11?
Correct.
Okay, so God is our refuge and strength, always ready to help in the times of trouble. So we will not fear when earthquakes come and the mountains crumble into the sea. Let the oceans roar and foam. Let the mountains tremble as the waters surge. Verse 4 says, a river brings joy to the city of our God, the sacred home of the Most High. Verse 5, God dwells in that city. It cannot be destroyed. From the very break of the day, God will protect it. The nations are in chaos and their kingdoms crumble. God's voice thunders and the earth melts. The Lord of heaven's armies is here among us. The God of Israel is our fortress. So come, see the glorious works of the Lord. See how he brings destruction upon the world. He causes wars to end throughout the earth. He breaks the bow and snaps the spear. He burns the shields with fire. Be still and know that I am God. This is probably my favorite verse out of the so far. I will be honored by every nation. I will be honored throughout the world. The Lord of heaven's armies is here among us. The God of Israel is our fortress. Wow.
And so let's remind our listeners that Psalms were written to music. And you're a musician.
Yes.
So
very poetic.
So there's a Selah, or an interlude, which means a pause, right between verses 7 and 8. And then obviously right after the end on verse 11. Yeah. And actually even after verse 3. So this was sang in sort of 3 chunks, right? And so let me read the note from the Life Application Study Bible. It says this: in Psalm 46, it says the theme is described this way: God is always there to help, providing refuge, security, and peace. God's power is complete, and his ultimate victory is certain. He will not fail to rescue those who love him. And this is for a choir director, and it's a song of the descendants of Korah to be sung by soprano voices. How about that? Yeah. So it actually includes to be sung by sopranos. Right. Wow.
High pitch.
Yeah. So I could sort of imagine it. I just can't get the melody in my brain, right? But I bet you back then, I mean, think about how complicated the Bible describes music even back then. And in some ways it sounds even more intricate than it does today. Yeah. We've sort of lost the beauty of it with the technology, right? And nowadays you can just ask AI to make you a song, and literally within 5 seconds they'll put out bangers.
Number one hits.
Like number one hits, which is crazy. Yeah. And even before that, just making your own tracks electronically. Yeah. But back then, the intricacies of the voices, the choirs, and it says choir directors. You can imagine just how beautiful these lyrics must have been. Yeah. You know what is cool?
What's that?
If you have a a Life Application Study Bible, which is different than what you said, NLT. Right. NLT is the translation. That's the New Living Translation. That's how that's the verbiage of being translated from Greek and Hebrew and Arabic to English, but different words. But the Life Application Study Bible is how they package that translation. Yeah. And they package it with a study. So in that, it says there's different psalms that have inspired famous hymns. Wow. And it looks like Psalm 46 that you just read is the one that inspired "A Mighty Fortress is Our God." Yeah. Which I grew up singing. Yeah. Right?
How does that go?
I don't even remember. I really don't. I bet you if I heard it, I could sing the whole thing. Right. But it's been so long. Yeah. But it's one that I knew I've sung. I think I sang it in Bible college. Okay. But I don't think our church sang it. Like the church I worked at for 7 years, this Baptist church, we had hymnals in this church. And I don't think this was one that we sang, but I know I've sang it, and I think it was in college. Yeah. But there's several on here, by the way, that I do know. Psalm 23, 46, 61, 87, 90, 100, 103, 104, 126, all are famous.
Yeah. What I love about this passage, Starball, is that Psalms 46 is a poetic reminder. That's how I'm interpreting it. And I learned years ago, so in business, there's this thing called business strategy, right? Yep. But in Psalms 46, I would like to think that this is a divine strategy that gives us a sort of a roadmap in navigating chaos. What do you do when storms roar, when your back is up against the wall? What do you do when there's all this sort of external noise, right? And God is literally in verse 1 telling us, I am your refuge, right? And I am your strength, right?
Yeah, he takes the most fearful things at that time for humanity. Yeah, earthquakes, oceans that obviously take out anything. Oceans, the strength of the ocean is to be respected. Right. And he says, "Hey, let the oceans roar." Yeah. I mean, think about that. think about their sailing capabilities and how primitive they were.
Yeah.
And he says, no matter what comes at you, God is our refuge and strength, ready to help us in times of trouble.
Right.
And that's an amazing thought.
Yeah. That he's not distant or late. He's very much so present.
Which is great.
Yeah.
A river brings joy to the city of our God. I love that word picture as well. You said poetic, right?
Right.
And so as this psalm proclaims the greatness of God, verse number 10, it says this, be still and know that I'm God, which is the one you said stuck out to you, right?
Yes.
This is what the note says. It says, war and destruction are inevitable, but so is God's final victory. And at that time, we will all stand quietly before the all-powerful Lord.
Right.
How proper then for us to be still now, reverently honoring him in his power and majesty. Take time to be still and to honor God.
Yeah.
Now, are you a person who you do like a lot of prayer meditation? For a lot of us ADD people like myself, it's hard to do that. There are people that I know, their gift is prayer, and they say, "Oh, the other day I prayed, and it was about 90 minutes into it," and I say to myself, "What? 90 minutes in?" Zoinks. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I am just the worst Christian ever, right? And to be honest, it's a lot less, so what I do, just like any classic ADD person, is I will do like, hey, it's better to do quick snippets 100 times a day.
Yeah.
Right. So constantly keep it going. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
Yeah.
So I feel like I constantly pray throughout the day. And by the way, I read that with Billy Graham's book.
Okay.
Billy Graham went to bed in his book, Just As I Am, I think. He said that he was with this other guy, and this other guy was following around and was like, wow, I'm with the great Billy Graham.
Right.
And he's like, this is one of the most godly men that in the world. And he says, I was so excited because he said, when we got to the hotel, we were going to be in the same hotel room. And he goes, and I was so excited to hear like how Billy Graham says his prayer at night. And he goes, this is like the greatest moment ever.
Right.
And he says, we got into the room, we all got ready. And he says, we got into bed and I'm just following his lead. He didn't say anything about prayers. And he goes, so I just sort of like, I got into my queen size bed over here. He got into his queen size bed over there. He says, and we shut off the light. And he says, and Billy Graham said out loud, good night, Lord. And that was it. And then he goes, the next day, he asked him, and he says, I got to be honest. He goes, I was expecting like this big time of prayer. And he says, and Billy Graham said, well, for me, there isn't a time when I'm not praying throughout the day.
Right.
And he said, I'm constantly praying. And then I heard that when I read the book, and I thought, that's me.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do, obviously, right? And so I want to be that person.
Yeah.
But it also made me feel better about not having like this big, somebody's praying with Pastor Chris. Let's make this bedtime prayer something to remember,
right.
Because that's not me.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, my original question was about you. So how do you lean?
I lean your way for sure. A lot of times I am learning in this season of my life to be what's called an intercessor, if you will. And so I am getting longer with my prayers, but those are intentional time for me to pray. And then that's when I would be, longer in that. But the Bible is very clear when he says, like, meditate on the word day and night. And so to me, those conversations are intimate moments and times and intentional times with prayer, like, in all thy ways acknowledge me. And so that's when I'm at work, when I'm dealing with my family, when somebody cuts me off in the middle of the road, like whatever that is, these are intentional times for me to literally pray. And so I do the same thing that you do, because otherwise, I'll be honest, I'll forget.
Right.
I will definitely forget. It's really easy. And this, being 30 years in ministry, it's really easy to to do the work of God without him.
Right.
And so I have learned to.
Yeah. As strange as that sounds, you could be around the things of God without the presence of God, or connected to the power of the Holy Spirit. Because if your business is church things, then God is all around you. Right. And if not careful, you can view that as a substitution for real intimacy with God.
Correct.
Right.
You can make that your idol.
Right. Yeah. The work of God. Right.
Correct.
Which is The Bible talks about that. The Pharisees' righteousness was the stumbling block, right? Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But Jesus talks about that, and that is true. You could make holiness and rule following and routine and rituals and church, actions and commandments. You could make that your thing, without actually loving the Father, right? Spending time with Jesus.
Yeah.
So what did Jesus say? Your loving God is your act of worship.
Yeah.
It is what is expected of you, right?
Yes.
Just to love God.
Yes.
And God says in the Old Testament, obedience is better than sacrifice. God doesn't want sacrifice, David says, but a broken heart, a broken and contrite heart. He wants the relational piece of us. So yeah, that's all good stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, I got to tell you this quick story.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Dr. Charles Stanley?
Yes.
Okay. So, I lived in Atlanta for 10 years, and I always, and growing up, I always listened. Even in Ohio, I grew up listening to Charles Stanley. My wife loves Charles Stanley, still does. And so I listen to him all the time. Listen to me, folks. He's that guy. Well, anyway, he did a message a long, long time ago called Meditation for Transformation.
Okay. And
I still remember it was like 10 things to do, set aside quiet time, be still, all these different things. And I've taught that many, many, many a times. And I still have the notes for it. But I've always known him as that guy. And he talks about prayer closets. I've read his books, and he talks about just being a man of prayer and all these kinds of things. Well, somewhere around 1998 or so, I was in my small little Baptist church in my Baptist world at the time, and he was a part of First Baptist Church in downtown Atlanta, but they had just moved to the Avon Center on the north side of the city.
Oh, okay.
And they were quite big, I don't know what it was, 20, 30,000 people, whatever it is at the time. But I knew somebody on staff who said, would you like to interview for a job here at First Baptist Church? And I was like, yeah. So I drove up there, and I won't tell you about all that stuff, but because there was a lot of observations about that. It was very interesting. But what I will say is this. In Charles Stanley's office, he had built at this new facility a prayer closet.
Wow.
And so it was in his office. And so he was just that guy. And so they said, oh, this is the doc's office. They call him the doc. And they said, and this is his prayer closet. And they just wanted to move on. I said, I'm sorry, what? Excuse me?
Right. Yeah.
I said, is there any way I could open up and look at his prayer closet? And he goes, well, I'm not sure anybody's ever asked that before. And I said, how could anybody not ask that?
Right.
I said, could I please?
Yeah.
And it was pretty basic, but it was this wonderful, beautiful thing with pillows on the ground, blankets everywhere. Pretty basic. There was nothing on the walls in terms of like literature, but there were photos and paintings like Psalm 23 and shepherds and things like this, just images. And but there were blankets and pillows, but there were Bible verses everywhere.
That's amazing.
Everywhere. And what I noticed was there wasn't a chair. There was only pillows and a blanket, which means this 80-year-old man at the time, I think, was on his knees. And I've read his books, so I know that he'll spend hours in there. And I got to tell you, man, there's something about that.
Yeah.
And so when I read, be still and know that I am God, that's where my mind goes.
Yeah.
My mind goes like, I need to force myself into a prayer closet moment, whether it's an actual closet or not. And I need to recognize the weight of this verse. Right?
Yeah.
And in the midst of everything they're talking about, victory and war and thunder, God's voice thunders. The Lord's armies are among us. All of these great word pictures. And then he says, be still and know that I'm God. Whew.
Yeah. I don't think it's about literally being quiet. I literally think it's like letting go of control and reminding your problems of your God versus reminding God of your problems like he doesn't already know.
You're right.
Right. So
I
think it's like pause before he's saying, be still and know that I'm God. Like pause before you panic, Kat. Pause and reflect.
Right.
Think of who I am, my divine being. Think that I know I had a purpose and plan for you before you were even born, before your mom and your dad even knew of each other. I knew and had a purpose and plan for you. So think about that before you go off the deep end when you're faced with whatever you're faced in. So like, and also trade control for confidence. Like when my children, when they want something to eat, they never ask me, are we going to eat today? They never ask me that. Are we going to eat today?
Right.
Why? Because I feed them every day. Right. Their only question is, what are we going to eat?
Right.
They never come to me and say, or their mother and say, oh, are we going to eat today? I just want to make sure because,
And side note, thank God, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Praise God. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's like them saying, I'm trading my control for confidence. I'm confident in my natural Father that he's going to provide food. So I feel like God is saying, hey, as your heavenly Father, be still and just know that I am God. Like, remember the last time you got into a pickle? Did I not get you out of that?
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that is our time, and I think that's a great place to end. So, thank you for Catlindt for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Catlindt, and by the way, I love that your dad added the T for the cross.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And so every time you write it or see it in print, you're reminded of that sentiment of your dad, which is so cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for being here, and hopefully we will see you next week. Jeff will be joining us again.
Yeah.
And again, maybe live on the 24th at Imlay City for the Bible Guys, but we'll see you then.